Okay, real talk. Al dente real talk. YTV's Dark Knight 4. I'm Review Cultist, and with me tonight are some very special guests.
Hey, this is Matt. I don't know what's going on. Here we go.
I'm Travis. I'm hypercritical. I'm here to debunk everything.
Hey, that's awesome.
Alright guys, what do you think about Dark Knight 4?
Well, we get introduced to Phil and Paul, some boys with young thrills on their minds. No, I'm not doing that.
I don't have my guitar to pick.
Where's my harmonica?
I like to sing the blues over ill-fitting drums.
I love that guy. Oh my god.
Yeah. I love the Dark Knighters.
He had
so
fun.
Much.
Yeah, he had fun times.
So yeah, for October of 2018, we're doing a series of Al dente Real Talks for the main show. For you, those of you who don't know what Al dente Real Talk is, go to our Patreon and check out the other episodes. Oh, otherwise, this is kind of just going to give you a taste of what we have to offer on our Patreon. But for the next 3 weeks of October, we are tackling Dark Knight 4, 5, and 6, which aired on YTV in Canada, and I don't think you guys had YTV, do you?
No, we did not. That's one of the things I wanted. I was really interested to see.
Yeah.
We do have Kmart, though.
Yes, you do have Kmart.
Well, we did. We don't anymore.
The first, Dark Knight 4 was kind of the penultimate start of it. There were some previous things in Dark Knight 1, 2, and 3. But this one was definitely the one that kind of started the Dark Knight for Halloween for kids in Canada, or specifically my neck of the woods of Canada, Ontario, during 1996, 1997, and 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, basically they are wraparound and buffer skits between actual like horror or actual like Halloween like specials of TV shows that aired actually not on Halloween. I think they actually aired like a week or so before Halloween, so that kids could watch them and not be trick or treating.
Right, sure.
But
back when trick or treating was like a whole night and not like the hours of 4 to 6.
Yeah. It was
trick-or-treating was of the devil where I'm from, so the hours of 4 to 6 have always been there, and you're still selling your soul.
I'm sorry. But yeah, so I guess we're gonna start with Dark Knight 4, which is about and I guess a little bit more context to this. So YTV had these like in between episode show like skits and so
this was a year-round thing, like them.
The PJs, the program jockeys themselves, as they were called, PJs, were like they were basically the guys that like introduced what's coming up. It was kind of like almost like a little like mini news broadcast between episodes of shows, usually around like as kids were getting into kids were coming home from school and like watching like the 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 like bracket,
the block,
and it was like the block, and also on like Saturday morning cartoon stuff they do that. The main characters of this one, PJ Phil and PJ Paul, were from a block after school, which was the Zone, and during Dark Knight they basically took the PJs and had them do like this Halloween or spooky themed skit that a bunch of kids during the 90s really loved, myself included.
They were. I like them, and I'm a 30-year-old. I wanted one. I think one of my notes I have is like, why didn't I get this growing up?
And it's really only through the grace of like people recording them, like myself, and others online, these skits actually still exist on YouTube and such, as well as Retrontario, the kind of an archivist website for all things Ontario and retro broadcasting. So anyway, with that kind of out of the way, so yeah, Dark Knight 4, 1996. It starts with sponsored by. Was this one sponsored by Kraft, or was this one sponsored by?
This one didn't. At least the playlist you sent me didn't have the sponsorships listed.
Okay.
It was just the sketches.
Gotcha. Yeah, they were usually these programs, these special like Halloween special programs, were usually sponsored by some local like company or like thing, like Kraft Dinner or some kind of thing like a charity event kind of thing. With a little contest in between each episode as well. But we're kind of tackling more the skits because those were the bread and butter, the meat and potatoes of the spooky Halloween skit specials. So, yeah, Paul and Phil are walking around in dingy midnight Toronto or some like dark neighborhood in like Ontarioville somewhere.
In the most unsafe place I've ever seen in any Canadian thing ever.
Yeah.
Canadians like the land of like Mounties, happiness, and sorries, and this place looked like Detroit in the 90s.
By the way, that was Toronto during the 90s. At least in that part, because in an interview with Phil Guerrera, the PJ Phil, they were shooting it in the warehouse district and around the studio, which now is called Liberty Village, but before that, it was a landfill with abandoned buildings and warehouses.
Okay.
There was when we were shooting Dark Knight 4 in the park, there were vagrants, needles, and condoms scattered around on the ground. It was a totally different place, compared to what it is now. They really only had to add fog machines and lighting. And this was from an interview by the Retrontario website. So I'll have a link in the description.
Cool.
Because it's fairly comprehensive.
Yeah, that was one thing I wasn't sure when I was watching this, if we were supposed to accept that Phil and Paul were just Phil and Paul from the sketches, or if we were supposed to be taking them as different characters. Because it seemed like their mentality was like they were in high school, even though they were like mid-20s something dudes.
Yeah. No, you were supposed to treat them like it was PJ Phil and PJ Paul.
As
and
the
they
actual
kind of
people.
As the actual as the characters that they perceive
They're PJ.
They're YTV characters. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It was their YTV like personas and like. As they are, and like in later ones, like as they worked at the studio and stuff like that. But for this one, they kind of like take on a little bit more of a like teenager vibe, even though they are in their 20s.
That was one of the things. There was a lot of dialogue in this that was very "How do you do, fellow kids?" Where they're like talking.
Hey, I'm hip.
They're talking a lot about how hip they are and how they want to hit up this groovy bash. That's
that's my first note I have is just like, oh my god, can we kill Paul already? Stop saying you're hip. That's like the 90s version of woke.
He proves how hip he is by doing the whitest boy dance I've ever seen.
Oh god.
And I think most of my notes at some part is like, as this gets worse and worse, I'm like, good, you deserve it.
Nice. So Paul and Phil, they're trying to find this party at night, in a dingy part of Toronto, I guess.
Yeah, because Phil got this anonymous invite. It's like, no, it's like a rave. That's how they do this.
Yeah, it's all underground, man. It's hip. It's cool. And they come across a guy like this awesome like dude. Like
I just call her.
He's like urban man. Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah,
I called him the Barker Man because he just seemed like one of those big tent barkers that a bunch of blues.
Yeah, exactly. Like even like kind of like to me, he almost has like the Clerks kind of outfit from Clerks 2. Not Clerks. In Clerks 2, they have like those or like almost like a fast food joint like outfit on with that hat and stuff.
Yeah, looks like he's trying to. And we'll talk about this later, like trying to actually like get people into an organization. Like he's the front man to try and get people in the tent or in this Dark Knight. And he also like always talks in the jazzy, as we were mocking in just a couple of minutes ago. but it was
Yeah.
so cool. I really love that guy.
like
In fact, that's my second note. Like, he disappears after a couple of seconds. It's like, wait, where'd he go? He was cool. Bring him back.
But he does come back. He's basically he narrates the entire night as they go on between.
Yeah, but we didn't know
episodes.
that when we were starting out.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
true, yeah, exactly. And then
Yeah, he tells them about this awesome monster bash they're going to, and then gives Paul a really gross handshake
yeah, and then the gross handshake
with some kind of
with a
liquid
hand-
sound.
Yeah, it's the ooze. It's the strange slime of
The
YTV's,
Dark Knight ooze, I think he
other
calls
things.
it at some
The
point.
Dark Knight monster blood.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so he he brands Paul, and then they kind of just go off down in the direction that he pointed, and
And then
they spend the next,
Paul's talking about see that handshake he gave me? It was so hip. And then the narrator guy walks off. It's like, it's gonna be a bad night.
yeah, fall into the fog lamps or into the fog machine
Yeah.
and the lights. Yeah. And then yeah, as they're walking around, the mark that he has on his hand his arm gets worse.
And they run into Agnes, who is this woman that is clearly wearing shoes on her knees.
Yeah. Agnes. And again, just kind of a creepy, clingy person. And then
Woman of the Night is what I have
Woman of the
in
Night.
here.
Yeah. And then they just they run away from her, get away from her.
I gotta say, this is so. One of the things also I noticed between this, and I don't know if you guys noticed this as well, is that this cut between very standard camera angles and very 90s kids programming camera angles, where
Yeah, you could tell the different lenses and I don't think they had filters at this point, but you could definitely tell there were different camera angles and setups.
Yeah, so it seemed like every commercial break, so it seemed like I have this divided into acts where it cuts to black and probably cut back into something else.
Yeah.
And the first one is just it's a straight shot and shot reverse shot kind of thing. And then the part with Agnes, it's all extreme close-ups and the camera is constantly rotating into different Dutch angles with the fisheye lens, for the entire
and that continues,
scene.
too. That also continues in other parts too.
Yeah,
Especially as they
it
get
seems
to
to
the
come
end.
back every other commercial break, sort of.
Yeah.
And it's weird, how it cuts between very standard camera work and this weird. I don't even know how to describe. It's very 90s kids advertising camera work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotta
I
keep
wish
the
I had
motion going.
a better description of it, but you hit the nail right on the head because it's it felt as if they're oh man, let's actually try and do some skits, and then halfway through they were just oh wait, no, we gotta do something to make sure that this stays within
In the
the
kids'
realm
heads.
kids understand. Put it in there. Let's use the filmography they understand, that they've been trained to understand.
There's a good descriptor of this in Freddie Wong did this video a while back called "Every 90s Commercial Ever."
Oh God, yes.
There's a good behind the scenes on that where they talked about making it and they studied a lot of these 90s commercials. And I guess one of the things that's fitting here for YTV is 90s commercials for kids in the 90s were like a horror movie, cause it's all just Dutch angles and fisheye lenses and extreme close-ups and just kind of bizarre camera techniques and I don't know why I don't know. It's really good.
It's one of those that it seems to be not a curving, but the climax of the weird kids stuff. Because in the 2000s, this kind of drops off into the adult humor that your adults can understand. Because in the 80s, it's, hey, do you know these serial killer films? We made toys for kids. And then the 90s is making remember all those serial killer films you watch and you weren't supposed to? Well, we made the commercials just like that. And then the 2000s came, it's oh wait, no, we don't need to keep worry about the kids. We got to make sure that the parents are still up on the stuff. So it's this really interesting timestamp to view.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, going back to that interview thing, getting some insight on the back burner of it. Yeah, Dark Knight 4, like, it really was, like, the channel's, like, kind of first big, like, special like this. Like, they hadn't really done, like, this kind of skit thing for, like, a holiday or something.
So what was Dark Knight 1 through 3 then?
I think Dark Knight 1 and 2 were, they had some, like, it was just some horror programming, like, Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps or whatever was, like, whatever had Halloween specials at the time. And then, they had, like, some little, like, bumpers between episodes that were, like, a skull, like, it was, there's a very, YTV viewers, or like, from like the 90s will remember the YTV skull, which is this giant, this like cartoonish, like lime green skull with YTV, like, printed on the side of it.
Mm-hmm.
That would, like, laugh and and like cackle and then, like smash the screen with the, YTV brand. It was kind of more or less the stuff they did. And then, apparently Dark Knight 3, they did do a little skit thing with, one of their Saturday morning cartoon, bumper, like, news shows like The Zone, called, Brainwash. And it's like a laundromat thing, but it's, yeah, weird. And they do, like, kind of a scoop, with those PJs or with those, like, persona characters, they do, like, a Scooby-Doo-esque, like, investigation of the hidden rooms in a place in Toronto called Casa Loma. Which was kind of, they in the interview, they say that was basically the set dressing for what they were planning to do for Dark Knight 4.
Okay.
Like, they were testing the waters with that, like, what their capabilities, what their budget they could do. And then they realized, oh yeah, we could totally do, like, something really, like, cool and edgy for the next one. And then, let's go darker.
Yeah.
Alright, we went too dark. Let's step back a little bit.
Yeah.
Go weirder. Yeah, and we'll get into that in the next episodes, because, there is kind of a history to that, where, like, this one was the big one. The next one, they tried something dark, and then they had to possibly jump back from it.
Yeah, and the next one that we're going to talk about, it's got some interesting history in the entire, like, history of horror because of what it did, and what it still technically kind of continues to do. Yeah, the style they cribbed.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But
that's
back to exactly. Back to Dark Knight 4. So they escape Agnes.
Also, during that whole time, Phil is still talking about how, like, no, there's gonna be a guitar player in Babes, and, like, literally, like, every scene, Phil says guitar player, major band, guitarist, like, he always says that, and some like, obtuse reference to women.
Is it Phil or Paul?
Phil.
That's Phil, yeah. Yeah. Phil is the,
Paul gets,
Filipino guy.
Paul gets more into it, yeah.
Paul's the white guy.
As it goes on, yeah. Paul's the white dude, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and then I think this is the point where they start noticing that there's a rash, right, on his arm?
Yeah, it's Act 2, yeah, because Agnes looks at it and says, like, oh, you've been branded by the Dark Knighters, and, like, Phil looks at it, like, oh man, that's a rash, maybe that guy gave it to you, maybe it's stress, maybe you're stressed out.
Just, like, nonchalantly, like,
and it's, yeah, but
it was this party.
Agnes says, like, oh yes, the ladies will find you delectable. And then tells them to, like, go down the street to find the party.
Go find the doctor with a K.
God.
That's the stereotype. Yeah, I have the note here. So the Barker man is evil and gave Paul a deadly rash. Good. Fuck Paul.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Because we cut back and we have the Barker man saying that, like, he's like, yeah, I invited Phil. I knew Phil would be. I knew I could draw Phil anywhere with a party, and he wouldn't go anywhere without his sidekick Paul.
Yeah.
And I told him there was gonna be a major band at this bash.
Oh God.
I didn't. Just to let everybody know, I don't hate Paul. I love being hateful at Paul, because it's one of those of, like, I can't hate somebody that's just doing the 90s shtick. I can retroactively, but it's fun telling him.
The character himself was like that.
Yeah.
And then, like, so in this part, Paul's like, dude, my arm is, like, festering, like, there's pus and stuff, I need to see a doctor. And Phil's like, no, we'll get your arm fixed up at the party, like, I hear there's music, maybe we can get in a jam or something. And I don't know what that even meant. Like, it's just.
Yeah, and he just kind of like, no, I'm done. I'm not going. Like,
yeah.
I need to go to a hospital. And it's like, no, we'll find a doctor at the party. And it's like, and then I think that's when
we smash cut to Dr. J.
I'm a doctor.
Dr. J. God, I forgot.
Or
I
Dr.
write down
James.
his name.
It's,
Dr. James, yeah.
and it's just like, you need a doctor?
Duh. And then then that would be when the next episode would come on, and then
Yeah.
it flash cuts back through to the next one, which is the doc. Yeah,
I gotta say, so then we see Dr. James, who is this really grody doctor with busted glasses, and I gotta say, like, he looks the part very well. He is a very bad actor.
Oh yeah, I almost kind of wonder if that maybe wasn't like an actor, but like just somebody they had it like a producer or something like that in the studio.
We need a very creepy looking dude. Can you do this for us?
Yeah, exactly.
Only if I can ham it up.
Sure, whatever, it's fine. Wait, you call yourself a doctor? It's like, yeah, haven't lost anyone yet. Well, there was that one.
Except that one guy.
A long time ago. That was a long time ago, though.
That was a long time ago.
Oh, yeah, you should totally go to that party.
Yeah, you've been branded. It looks real nasty.
God.
What is this voice we're doing?
We're trying to do that doctor's voice. Like, I don't.
By the way, I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning. I will have a link for the YouTube channel or the YouTube episode of this, so like you can check it out. Like,
Yeah.
it's all there.
Please do. These are gloriously weird.
Yeah.
I think the only way I could sum up the doctor is like a lower key, like Mick Foley. Like, that's kind of his voice.
Oh, yeah. That's a good description.
So any of you who are familiar with 90s wrestling?
Is it the dude? Yeah, he's like Dude Love Mick Foley.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
I can't believe I got that reference and helped. Oh, God.
And then, so the doctor treats Paul as, like, Paul is
like,
yelling at Phil about, like, you only want to find this, you just want to find this party, you don't care about me, and then, like, then we have a 180 between Paul and Phil as the doctor finishes up. He's like, dude, no offense, but I wouldn't send my worst enemy to you. And Paul's like, no, I feel better. Where's this soiree at?
Where are the girls?
Yeah.
Yeah, they starts becoming infected more with the Dark Knighters.
Yeah, because the narrator or the Barker man sings his like weird little bluesy thing about Dr. James spreading the curse with his magic, and then plays a harmonica.
Yep.
Yep, right on cue. Part of my notes. What is this jazz blues shit? God damn it! This shit. Review cultist. Your stuff is weird.
Yes, it is. And it is awesome. And then the next one is the.
They talk about how
no,
Paul's infected with the
patch. Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
It's the eye patch guy.
Yeah, who even though he looks like Al Capone, because he has an eye patch, Phil calls him Pirate Man.
Yeah. Well, because the kids will get that. They don't know who Al Capone is.
No one knows anybody who has an eye patch. It's just a pirate.
I mean, so I'm gonna say I had to watch this 3 times to realize that the guy had an eye patch because it was on the eye that wasn't facing the camera.
Yeah.
You only see the eye patch right at the end when he faces the camera to talk to the Barker man.
Yeah.
Because he even tries to talk like a 20s gangster.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just like, it's like, you with the Brandon? Oh, that's definitely Dark Knight Brandon. You're hit. You, no.
Yeah, I actually wrote. I like the line from Phil and Pirate Man so well here that I wrote it down. That Phil's like, I got the invite. Paul just came along. Look, your party's waiting for you down at your mama's place. So why don't you head down there and have some milk and some cookies and some ice cream before they run out? All right, you little squirt.
Yeah, I don't have any notes on this guy because I think I just really super enjoyed him because he did apart from looking like a pirate. As we've said, like, he fit that, like, skeezy, like, you not supposed to be here, boy, mentality really well.
Yeah, no, I like this character so much.
Yeah. And I'm sad because, like, I don't think he gets a name, but, like, Agnes gets a name, Dr. James,
Like most of them don't get names. They get like very vague descriptions. So I just have this guy in my notes as Pirate Man.
Pirate Capone. Yeah, so and
it's like there'd be someone like you got to get down to the party. Someone will take a look at that arm. It's like, oh, you got arm specialist? Yeah, we got arm specialist. Legs too.
Right.
Sometimes even a torso specialist if we're lucky.
And then the next one is when they find
well, I like
bench,
also
right?
the line as they're leaving here. Like Phil's like really creeped out by that guy. It's like that creepy guy's got something up his sleeve, and Paul looks at him like looking at like the wound on his arms. Like, so do I, Phil. So do I.
Yeah. Slowly becoming more one of the Dark Knighters. He's becoming not alive, or what was it?
Unalive.
What was it called? Unalive.
Yeah. At this point, I have in my notes like this feels like a World of Darkness sketch.
It really does.
One person is the witness or the food, and the other one is branded to become a kindred. It's just a big ordeal for someone's kink. Or whatever
it was the mid-90s.
The situation is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the mid-90s, so they might have like got that inspiration for this.
Yeah, that is about the time for the heavy romance or vampire.
Yeah, bring back the romance vampires. Yeah. Like we kind of say it as a joke, but like kids in the 90s were really into romantic vampires.
Yeah.
The 90s were a mistake.
Yeah, because they led to the 2000s, which led to the 2010s.
Which led to the 20... No, the 2010s are... Yeah, never mind.
The 2010s are happening right now.
Hopefully the 2020s will be better.
I like the, but yeah, in the next part, the narrator's talking about how he's got him hook, line, and sinker, and Paul says his arm is taking them to their destiny. And Phil's now wanting to go home, and Paul's like, no, I need to party. My arm needs to party. And then it's where we get introduced to characters who are later introduced to us as the twins.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's what they're called. And like one of them's an arm specialist. It's like, I love your arm. It is just festering.
Yeah, I love I've seen open scars and pus before, but this is one happening infection.
It's like, hey, I know. Yeah.
Just at this point, I also have noticed, like, oh man, we got some Nurgle fetishes going on here.
Yeah,
love me some festering rot. It's like, ugh.
Well, that's the thing. Like, this is a very Addams Family thing. Like, they're talking about like the vintage of the infection, and it's full bodied, and like describing it like a fine wine.
Yeah. I think Addams Family is the best way to describe this. Like, it's supposed to be ooky, spooky, disgusting, but it's not supposed to be dark and grim. It's supposed to be very tongue-in-cheek and enjoyable.
Yeah, very much like horror-styled.
And during this like whole thing, like Phil is going back and forth between freaking out that they're going into a trap and also freaking out that he's not going to be able to go to the party.
Like, we're gonna die. I want to party. We're gonna die. I want to party. I'm gonna die at the party. Wait, what?
Well, he's freaked out by the twins until they tell Paul that they can take him to the Big Bash because he's so cool.
Yeah, they take Paul
now
away,
he starts freaking out that he's not cool enough to go to the party.
Yeah, like he's sitting there on the bench as they've like gone away with Paul, and then one of them like stops and is like, "Come on," and the look on his face like, "Yes, awesome."
Yeah, she's like really like, "Come on,
let's go." I guess you can come too. Yeah, he's just like, "Yeah."
It was missing the '90s arm pump.
Yeah. And then
the narrator talks about the transition to the twins really helped Paul's transition to full Dark Knighter, but he feels like the twins might have scared Phil off too much. So when the twins get feisty, it's time to call the caretaker. And so Phil and Paul run into this tall guy in a suit who scares the twins off and freaks out about Paul's arm and says, "I just came from my office over there. I'm going back to my car. I can give you a ride. Just have to wait here for me."
Yeah, I'll be back. And then it's like, oh man, like I'm getting really tired. And then like they just like they're sitting like waiting there by that like wall, and then like you see that the Barker man, because I don't have another name for him, and the office dude who.
Well, Phil says we gotta wait for that guy to get back. He's our only hope. And then the camera like zooms out and pans down, and you see the caretaker, as we come to discover, and the Barker man, and you can see the caretaker has the wound on the back of his neck. Yeah.
Also, fun fact about that, the wound makeup they used, apparently it was, apparently Paul McGuire is Paul. He fondly remembers a zealous makeup artist applying mini sardines from a tin to create the wound effect on his arm.
Oh, that's really good. I should have on it. Now that you mention it, I should have watched it again to see what it is, because usually that's done with like, I guess in the 90s they would have done like, you can use gushers to get a good one, but the sardines are an excellent choice because they would seep and smell and get that.
Well, I don't think I think that's the thing. Like, I was trying to take a better look at the wound the whole time myself, but like this is a low quality VHS, and every scene is really dark. So like you can tell that there's something there, but there's not enough detail to see what.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I love practical effects like that.
Yep.
Yeah, they put a lot of work into this. I can appreciate that.
It's no like no wonder that this is like one of those like well remembered things from the 90s from YTV.
It had a lot of production value for a local station, for a local station's like ad break.
Yeah. So then, they're waiting there in the next one, and
then Phil is saying wants to go back, and Paul says he's better than we've ever been. Phil's like, we're still buds, aren't we? Oh, we're still buds, Phil.
Buds.
I don't think we'll be able to hang out as much as we used to, but we're still buds.
And they're sitting at another bench, right? And it's getting foggier. Is that this one?
Yeah,
yes.
they're sitting. They're sitting on top of a bench, and the fog's coming in all around them as Phil's like talking, saying like he shouldn't have talked to strangers, he shouldn't have tried to find a party, and then slow motion hand explodes from the ground, and then like 17 years later, Phil is like, ah.
Right, because it took a little bit of time for that to reaction. And then that's when, like, suddenly the camera just goes crazy, like, rave party.
Yeah, the camera goes
flashing to all the different characters.
It's full Dutch angles, extreme close-ups, like, smash cut, smash cut, smash cut, smash cut over and over again.
It's like they put the camera on, like, a calliope crank, and it's just going around in circles and spinning.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
You can hear the Song of the Storms in the background as the guy's, like, cranking it.
Yeah, and the Barker man's like, let's party. How you feel now, Philip? And Phil's like, I feel hip. Very hip.
And he's like all like gross looking and stuff too, like 'cause he's now become infected too.
Yeah.
Flash infected, apparently.
And there's these like tribal drums just like hammering over the background.
Yeah. And then, basically Phil and Paul end up becoming Dark Knighters. And Barker man lets out one more like,
He sings a bluesy riff over these tribal drums, which doesn't
work.
I think they
It doesn't mesh well.
Yeah, they added the drums in post, I think, or they kind of didn't think about how these two, cause he's doing a slow swing beat over like,
yes.
You know, like Foghat.
Yeah.
Foghat.
And then, but yeah, basically like that, like they're gonna just party all night long till the sun comes down, the sun comes up, basically, and that until next year or something, right?
Yeah, that's the
implication.
Yeah, and
I don't know what their party is because apparently they're all just standing there as a camera swoops in on them over and over.
Their goth party, which is stand
exactly,
awkwardly in the corner, listen to music, and talk about being vampires.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
fair.
Really. They know they're hip.
Wear black. Forgot wear black. That's a key part of the goth party.
Yeah. Also be pasty as hell. Because everyone had, like, pasty white makeup and, like the twins had, like the raccoon, like, makeup over their eyes kind of thing. Like Pris from Bubblegum Crisis. Or not Bubblegum Crisis, sorry. Like from Blade Runner.
Yeah, it was extremely, I guess, yeah, for lack of a better way, it was like a very Victorian kind of thing. I don't know.
It was a very Victorian skull makeup, like very stage. It was stage makeup style of like pancake on the face and then deep eyeliner to make the eyes and the face look very skull-ish, which in the fog actually helps with the idea I have here that everyone is zombies. What?
Yeah,
is what
exactly,
one of my notes is.
Yeah, the Dark Knighters are just like a ghoul cult or zombie cult.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and that's basically how the skit ends, is they are taken by the curse and the Dark Knighters and added to their numbers. And then so we have talked a lot about like what our thoughts are about the actual skits. So usually on Al Dente we do like how to make this a story or something like that. But because we have you guys from Ugly Talk, how do we make this gameable?
How to make this into a game?
Yeah. Or like what aspects would you use to like kind of like, or like what kind of things would you draw inspiration for this?
So I think right away you could actually just transcribe this entire thing into a game. You just make it a very haunted house style, like Call of Cthulhu game.
Yeah,
not
and
Call of Cthulhu the system, but like that feeling of like, all right, go here, get scared.
Yeah, and you have it kicked off by them shaking one of them shaking the Barker man's hand, and that gives you, if you want to be an asshole about it, that gives you a thing anytime your players aren't moving forward, like, oh, your arm is telling you to do this now.
And you use the impenetrable fog and the nature of being in a lost industrial district. Be like, all right, I go home. All right, well, you leave, and you actually make. The design of this would be very simple, of just like make your 4 stops, your the lady, the doctor, the twins, the guy, and then your penultimate one, and then just you can, even when you're deciding to run the game, just roll a dice to see how they come, because the doctor is the one that you use when you want to check on it, and then when you want to leave, you have the counselor, and then you have the twins to kind of fade them back and stuff like that. You can pretty much just take this as is and expand it out a bit to give some pillow room for your players to have choices during it. And run it in World of Darkness, just like straight 100%. This is a World of Darkness.
Like a Mortals game.
It really could.
Yeah, it's just a Mortals game, and like these don't even have to be like monsters. These can be other mortals that you give a zombie aspect to, or some type of craving to them. Steal one of the, instead of like the humanity aspect of like a hunter's game, just make it be a craving scale that the person that get infected gets with it. If they get into an argument or a tussle with one of the players because they get freaked out, like then the infection can spread, and then like that, then you have this inexorable draw towards the home base, the hive.
Yeah. Like basic, I think I've refound this. Like I'd watched this when it first aired back in the 90s, and then I'd refound the recorded tape of it that I had done like in the early mid 2000s, and I remember since then like just kind of thinking like, man, this is like, like there's so much like this is, I could just use this as a scenario, like very much like what you just said, like just make this the scenario, or like develop the Dark Knighters as some kind of like ghoul cult. Or some kind of like that's like, they basically use this as like some like weird rave around October as like their initiation for new members.
Yeah, and like we were saying, like, and this is a very easy jump off point. Like that's one of the strengths of this. Like the strength of all of these actually is like you can almost run these all as just scenarios right away, as pre-written with a little bit of fluff added for your for your players. But even then, they make great jump off points. So like Dark Knighters 4 is a great intro session to like we were saying, vampire. Like just turn these into vampires. This is your intro session, and then the rest of it is you're a kindred now, and you have to deal with that Mixed Live, if you want to go with World of Darkness, if you want to go with Call of Cthulhu, like to make a 2 or 3 scenario, you are the people that go to this cult and then have to leave or like have to deal with the fallout of what's happened. There's a lot of, and then even then, if you pick it apart, like you can take the creepy doctor or you can take the Barker Man and make the Barker Man just an antagonistic force in your games of this lyrical weird man that shows up and sows
it's a sort of a G-Man character,
but in a very Nurgle way of like, this is a gift from him instead of actually being negative. You can
do you like pleasure or flavor?
Or even just like a Monster's Another Childish Thing. Just have the Barker Man be a monster on the loose that you have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think maybe even like, maybe not Little Fears, because Little Fears is a little young. Maybe like the older end Little Fears characters would work with it.
Little Fears will work just fine. This is one of the things that I've noted before, is Little Fears, you're not supposed to play above the age of 13, but it will not break the game if you just age everyone up to 5 years. So your minimum age is 6, your maximum age is 18, and that one works perfectly for this. It keeps the game balanced. It does make a little bit more taxing on the mechanical side of it because you have to remember to do the age addition and not factor that into your skills. But it still is a lot more freeform, and that allows for you to, when your characters get spooked about what's going on, feed off of that as you use their fear and their fear points they make to make Barker Man or your crazy things show up more.
Yeah. Like, maybe that's what's, like, one of them is infected or something like that, and that's actually what's causing, like, the fears it's actually the, feeding the curse that's on one of them.
Or if you want to be very, very childish, it's just this guy touches you and he drags, like, the Barker Man is just a, kind of
he's just stranger danger.
Yeah, he's just stranger danger, and what he touches you and grabs and leaves off is like some greasy food stains from his chicken wings that he ate, and you think you're infected, and as everyone gets spookier and spookier, you use that actual fear that it's infected to become real, and you have to let the people, like, at the end, like, face their fears of like, no, idiot, that's just chicken grease.
Yeah. No, let's go have a party. Let's go sleep over. Let's go have a sleepover and like party and hang out.
Yeah, it's like we're in the park with some friends and we got lost. Oh God, this vagrant touched us, or this guy who's working at a local club touched us, and now we're infected. We need to flee.
This drunk guy that runs a haunted house.
Exactly, like
and plays the harmonica.
Or no,
one of the things about Little Fears. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say some drunk guy who's just running the World of Darkness LARP in the park.
Oh God, yes! They're like, hey kiddies, you want to be a vampire? Come here. It's like, oh no! But one of the things about Little Fears that's not used often is people want the monsters to be real instead of allowing your characters to let the paranoia make it real.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's really fun. It's one of the things I really like about Little Fears that kind of gets more like messed up the more expansions they add on. Is that, like, the base Little Fears Nightmare Edition is the kids are just imagining it.
Yeah.
Which is why they're, like, fighting like a dragon with a hockey stick or something. Like, it's all just stuff that they're coming up with.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite scenarios, either in the book or I use an example, is like, you moved into a new neighborhood and you're scared because there's a hellhound. Except it's not a hellhound, it's just the big dumb junkyard dog that's tackled you a couple times.
Isn't that just the Sandlot?
It's basically the Sandlot, yes. Yeah. But it actually turns into a monster. The beast is actually a beast until you solve it.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing in the Sandlot. The beast is this like, indestructible monster until like one of the kids gets chased by it, and then as the chase keeps going, the beast gets smaller and smaller and smaller until they realize like, oh, it's actually just a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I'm going to keep always proselytizing for Little Fears, because I love that system. Like that's an aspect of Little Fears that, as Matt said, it gets pushed away the more they expand it, but it's kind of that heart of the system that is really fun to play with.
Yeah.
Because kids is stupid. Me especially. As a kid, I was stupid even as an adult. Like, I scared the shit out of myself because I've been watching too many top 10 spooky things and, like, been sleeping on the couch and getting nervous when the cars drive by.
You too, huh?
Oh, no, it's the Bekele and Bimbe coming after me. It's like, no, you idiot, stop it.
First off, that's in Africa, isn't that?
Macaulay and Bombay is, I think, in the jungles of South Africa. It's basically a brontosaurus that lives in the rivers. It's a long neck reptile that they've showed brontosauruses and such, and they're like, it's like that but smaller, but no one goes there because there's not a lot of research into it, and it's not really not a ecologically beneficial source to send out scientists to focus their research on. So it's one of those like cryptids people hear about.
Yep.
I might have a whole list of cryptids I'm making Delta Green games for, because I really enjoy what I've found on my dives.
Nice. We basically come to the conclusion that this is a very gameable situation.
Yeah, it's at least the intro session to like a campaign, or you could take any one element from it. I think the infection and the Barker Man are probably the most easily transposed into any other game.
Yeah, they are the easiest, and it's also, depending on the game you want to do. Figure out what your system does the best on focusing on, and then make sure you accentuate that on your with your threat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also, like, in terms of, like, creepypastas or, like, writing a story based off of something like that, or, like, using this as the inspiration, it's the same kind of premise, so they kind of go hand in hand, because I could see this, like, being used for the inspiration for some kind of weird, like kids trying to, or like somebody trying to find a party, or like a ritual pasta, even like go to this part of Toronto and
how to find the most kickin' party. Yeah.
See, exactly, you say ritual pasta, and all I think of is like like one of those shrines to the Virgin Mary, but it's like boxes of noodles.
So ritual pastas are the ones that are a list of step-by-step instruction on how to do something, like the Three Kings game, or the or like Bloody Mary.
Okay.
Yeah, Bloody Mary is like definitely the jumping off point for that kind of thing, or like the we've done on the show in previous 11 Miles, where like you have to, it's a wishing game where you like you have to wish for like hold on to onto what you want to wish for like really hard while you're driving on back roads, and a road will appear, and then you have to go 11 miles through hell, then 1 kilometer, and you will get your greatest wish rewarded.
You should send me those, because I had one of my old laptops had a whole list of those. I was prepping for something, and it all crashed.
Yep.
So I would love to have some links to these ritual pastas.
Yep. I can definitely send you. They're on creepypasta.wiki. They actually have like ritual pastas as a category.
Sweet.
So yeah,
I know also
like
on
midnight game and stuff too.
On No Sleep they also had not only Three Kings but also people reporting back on trying to play the Three Kings game.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't gone to No Sleep in a while. Yeah, that's a good one as well.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely feel like this lends it, like Dark Knight, like each of them too, like not just like Dark Knight 4, but like Dark Knight 5 and 6 even, kind of lend them to being like good fodder for inspiration for like story writing, or even game design, or like game working, like game scenarios and stuff like that. So
I mean, it shows how influential it is that it's still stuck around, and it's technically one of the things that have clearly got you into horror, and the fact that it is still able to give just goes to how good of the quality is for such a simple, subject matter and such a simple attempt.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's, yeah, cause like, a lot of us in the 90s saw it as like at a very young age. And it definitely, like, to me, it definitely like further sparked my, like love of horror, and like, especially like nostalgia horror. Like the kind of like, cause again, I watched it like when, with the same kind of cartoon shows and TV shows I used to watch. And then now, like decades later, I'm still like, remembering it and reminiscing in a nostalgic way, but like of this horror show or this like creepy show.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have anything else to say about Dark Knight 4 from you guys?
I'm trying to think. Oh, there's one more system I think this would be ideal for, but it takes a lot more work. Through the Breach, or any of your like Weird West ones, if it has connections to Louisiana or has the connection to like the Blue Cities, this would be a fantastic one to run a almost Masks of Nyarlathotep or even Orient Express as you're going through and running into the Infection, the Barker Man, or you're like a person that works on the train, and as you go through, you realize this guy shows up and might be on your train, and allows for a lot of the Weird West, Deadlands type spooky stuff to happen, while keeping in theme with the like blues and that era that music styling elicits in people.
You know, one thing also I'm realizing, as you mentioned, specific Cthulhu scenarios, Dark Knight 4 on its own is also very much a Carcosa scenario.
Yeah.
Where you can replace the ending with the Barker Man putting on his mask and them having them just living out the final act of the King in Yellow.
Yeah. Man, also just remember, wait till you get to Dark Knight 6, because that is Carcosa. That is some Carcosa level shit. But yeah, no, that and, trying to think, actually, like, even like, again, I play Pathfinder a lot, and I can see this just like the Barker Man just being like a like an enemy bard character, like a villainous bard.
That's actually a really good point. I don't particularly think in lines of Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. That is a fantastic example of like an evil ass bard to use and not be like the hammy jester, just the actual like Pied Piper style.
Exactly.
No, I want him just transposed as he is playing a harmonica.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he can't have a harmonica.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, just straight up have a harmonica as his instrument of choice.
He has to have Blues Travel Bandolero of harmonicas, though, to be really, in character for a D&D game.
Yeah.
Just different ones do different songs, and I pull them out, and I have you play along. Something like that.
Well, also,
you have to do the sing songs. That's the only part about that character that sucks.
Yeah. Also, with Pathfinder stuff, they actually released a horror adventures supplement that adds corruptions.
Ravenloft?
No, well, not Ravenloft. It's actually just called Horror Adventures. It's like one of their supplementary expansion books.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
And honestly, the corruptions in it, it's like vampires, lycanthropy, lich, ghoul, and some of that, very much reminds me kind of the Infection here. And also kind of like how, I guess how Will of Darkness does, even though I don't have that much experience with it. Where like
the slow corruption as you go from X to Y.
Yeah, you're slowly
like
losing your humanity and becoming more and more of this like inhuman monster. But you're still a hero, so you like can use your powers, but you're slowly being corrupted by that power.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to actually see I love corruption mechanics and transformations in any type of media. I would love to see an actual report on how that affects gameplay. I've seen somebody who did a custom corruption game in Pathfinder, and it went mixed bag because he never followed any set path and just kind of did it on their own, so it was people loved it and hated it, so I would be interested to see someone else's take on it.
I will have to try and persuade my live group. But yeah, okay, so anything else before we kind of, feel like we've touched on a lot of stuff while we've been running through the different skits and remarking about it.
No, I think we did a good job. Go watch it. For every little piece that we've found and that we've, analyzed and thought was interesting, I guarantee you will find something that is just as interesting or just as a useful germ in your own media you're making a story out of.
Yeah, actually, I found out last week, a film festival, company in Toronto actually, back in 2015, did they actually got Paul and Phil to come back, and they did kind of a Dark Knight, revival, kind of more of a theater thing. They showed some horror movies rather than TV shows.
Sure.
But they had Phil and Paul doing a Dark Knight kind of little skit in between, bookended it.
Nice.
which I thought was like really neat. And I wish I want to try and find out to see if they are going to be doing that like yearly, because that I would definitely pay money to go to see that again. You can also check out on Retrontario, that's RETRONTARIO.com. They have, again, like they archive video files of old classic, or like old 90s and 80s and just retro, Ontario broadcasts. And they have, they're the ones that have most of the Dark Knight 4, Dark Knight 5, Dark Knight 6 like clips, but they also have this, blog entry, this article called That Time When Halloween Was the Dark Knight, which goes into like some like behind the scenes stuff, like talking to some of the PJs, the actors themselves, and getting information about this thing that happened in the 90s. And it's really cool.
All right.
All right, so then I guess we'll sign off for now. So what do you guys have anything you want to plug right now?
I guess we can plug our podcast, so...
Yeah.
Ugly Talks, me and Matt talk
Ugly
about
Talk,
things.
yeah. Theyknowthings.com. You can also check out the Drunken Ugly. That's still happening. DrunkenUgly.com. I stream on Twitch sometimes. You can just go to orbitalbeef.com for that.
I have a Patreon if you're interested in the games. I run games and I stream content creation on how to write tabletop role-playing games and also to edit them. That's just Patreon, Travis Gaskew, TGaskew3, if you want to look for that. I'm also on Twitter, and you want to see my musings on random stuff.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, Al Dente Real Talk is usually on our Patreon, so you can check that out there. We also have extra content, special episodes, as well as early access. You just select the backer tier you'd like to support us at, and that's Al Dente Rigamortis on Patreon. Every little bit helps. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. We very much appreciate that. And you can leave us comments and comments, whether you liked this or not, in the comment section below where this gets posted, whether it be on Kiwi6, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr. We're also on iTunes, so leave us a rating and review. Let us know how we're doing through that. You can get in touch with me on Twitter at ReviewCultist. And you can also leave us an email at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com, where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas or creepypasta-esque media that you'd like us to discuss on the show in some form. Yeah, you can also check out the title cards for each episode on crazonstudios.tumblr.com, as well as on our YouTube channel, Al Dente Rigamortis, that has the videos of each episode. I'll certainly be posting these ones because they'll be part of the main show. And so until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm still Matt.
I'm still Travis. Credits. Edits. 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 Edits.